Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps. Today I'm going to show you how to make this adorable elf fridge magnet. Lion Brand was kind enough to give me the DIY yarn for all of the projects in this crochet along. For this elf, I'm going to be using brown, red, white, and then just small amounts of pink and black for the embroidery. Because these are just for the embroidery, it's okay to use embroidery thread instead of the yarn if you prefer. You'll also need a hot glue gun and some glue. I'm using this mini hot glue gun that Zyron gave me to review. And finally, you'll need a magnet that fits inside of your project. This one is about 1 inch in diameter, and that's a good size. You could go maybe a ½ an inch bigger, but probably no bigger than that. You do want a magnet that's relatively thin so that it doesn't puff up your work too much. Let's start with the back circle. Make a magic loop or chain 2. And then in your magic loop or in the second chain from your hook, work 6 single crochet. If you used a magic loop, go ahead and pull that tight and join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. For round 2, we're going to increase in every stitch, but rather than put 2 single crochets in the same exact spot in each stitch, we're going to do it slightly more invisibly. So go ahead and chain 1 to get up to the height, and now our first single crochet we're going to put in the back loop only. And then our second single crochet, we're going to put in both loops like normal of that exact same stitch. So there's an increase in the first stitch. We're going to do that in each stitch around. So back loop only, and then both loops. Back loop only, and then both loops. And we're going to keep doing that all the way around. Now we've doubled our stitch count, so we've gone from 6 to 12. This right here, that's the slip stitch join that we made on the first round, so we don't work into that. We just go ahead and slip stitch to join this round. And we now have 12 stitches. For round 3, we're going to alternate between increasing and not increasing. So in the first stitch, we're going to increase. So back loop only, and then both loops. In the next stitch, we're not going to increase, so just a regular single crochet. Increase, and then regular single crochet. And we're going to keep doing that pattern all the way around. So that's taken our 12 stitches and turned them into 18. Go ahead and join, and we're ready for round 4. In round 4, we're going to increase from 18 stitches to 24 stitches by doing an increase and then 2 regular stitches, then an increase, then 2 regular stitches. At the same time, we're also going to make the ears. So let's start with a chain 1 and then an increase and then 2 regular stitches. Okay, increase and 2 single crochet. Now let's put in an ear. I'm going to use a picot for the ear. So for a picot, you chain 3, and then you work back into the stitch you just made. Now you can do it by going right back into the stitch in the same spot. That's the most common way to do it. The way I like to do it is actually to pick up this front loop and then the side leg at the bottom of the stitch. I just like the way that that orients it a little better. I think it looks prettier. So that's how I do my picots, but any way you do your picots is fine. So it's chain 3 and then slip stitch back into the same stitch, and that's 1 ear. Now we left off after doing 2 regular single crochets. So here's our 2 regular single crochets. So now we've got to do another increase. And then 2 regular single crochets. Let's do that one more time. Increase. And then 2 regular single crochets. Now let's do one more increase, and then before we do our 2 regular single crochets, let's put in that other ear. So chain 3 And then I like to go in the front loop and the left leg. And there's my second ear. Now I just did an increase, so I've got to do 2 regular single crochets, and then I should have 1 set left of increase and 2 regular single crochets. And then I join to finish the round. And that is the back piece. That's upside down. Let me show it to you face up. That is the back piece of our elf. So we can go ahead and fasten this off. I've woven in the ends on the back piece, and now it's time to attach our magnet. Now remember, when this is attached to the front is going to sit on top here, right? So we want the wrong side, which is going to be on the inside. That's where we want to attach the magnet. So we're flipped it so the wrong side is up. Grab my magnet, grab my glue gun, and I'm just going to put a little dollop of glue right on the magnet. And squeeze it down into the center of my elf head. And it's done. And you can lift it up and see that it's attached. So now I put my glue gun away and let's move on to the front. The front circle is exactly the same as the back, except it doesn't have the ears in row 4. So I've gone ahead and worked through row 3, the same as I did on the back. And now for row 4, I'm going to chain 1, increase, there we go. And then single crochet in the next 2 stitches, increase, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and keep doing that all the way around, which should bring me to 24 stitches when I'm done. So that's 24 stitches. You can go ahead and join to finish the front circle, and then go ahead and fasten that off, but leave a good tail of about 12 to 18 inches, enough to sew all the way around, because we'll use that to sew the front and the back pieces together. I've woven in my starting tail. I've left the big long one for sewing, and I've also attached a little piece of black to the back to sew the eyes. Now, when the hat is on, it's going to cover the top third or so of the head, so I want to make sure that I've got my seam up at the top, just so that that gets hidden by the hat. So if the hat comes right around here, I want my eyes to be right around here, probably right in the middle of vertically of my circle. So I'm going to start my first eye here, and I'm going to start it here, and I'm going to make upward pointing eyes. So I'm going to just sew a line across here. Okay, leave it kind of loose. Come up at the top and catch that eye in there. Okay, and then sew it back down that same hole. And that'll give me, and I can then tweak the tension a little bit, that gives me this upward pointing eye. Now I can come over here and do the same thing, and I'm doing really big eyes for this elf, but I can come over here and do the same thing. Come across about the same way, right about there. Come up right about there. Catch this, and down in the same spot. And there are my 2 beautiful big eyes for my elf. I've attached a bit of red, and we're going to do the mouth in the same way. I'm going to come up directly under the eye, right in the middle of the eye, come back down in that same line directly under the middle of that eye, leave a nice big bubble, come up right in the middle of the 2, and catch that bubble and go back down in the same spot. And now I can adjust my tension, and that is my mouth. Now you can, if you want, add some little pink cheeks, so let's try that. I wove in my red tail and attached some pink, and now I'm just going to put a little pink cheek here. I'm going to start it here and finish it here. So I'm just making that little stitch, and I'm going to make the same stitch a couple times so that it gets nice and puffy. Maybe 4 times. And then I can come over to this side and find the same exact spot on this side and do the same exact stitch on this side 4 times. And there are my little pink cheeks. So that's the face done, and let's go on to the hat. In my original design, I wasn't thinking that the elf would need a nose, but after I finished making it, I thought, you know what, a nose would be cute, and actually my friend Mary Beth said, yeah, he needs a nose. So I kind of retrofitted the nose. In the pattern, you will be adding the nose right after you do the rest of the face, or while you're doing the rest of the face. All I did for the nose was you weave in a tail of the brown yarn, and then you go like this stitch right here, over and over again till you got a nice puffy nose. So that's how you add a nose, and I did it after, so I can't show you guys how it fits in here. But it's the same concept as the cheek. It's just right here in the middle between the eyes. Now let's make the hat. We're going to start at the very tip, so chain 2 and work a single crochet into that first chain. And that's just one single crochet, gives us the very tip of our hat. Chain 1 and turn, and we're going to work a single crochet again, just one single crochet. Now chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do an increase to bring us to 2. So back loop only, both loops. Chain 1 and turn. This time we're going to do a regular single crochet and then an increase at the end. So back loop, both loops, and that brings us to 3. Chain 1 and turn. We're going to do an increase at the beginning, so back loop, both loops, and then 2 regular single crochet. Chain 1 and turn. We're going to do an increase at the end this time, so 3 regular single crochets, and then an increase, and this is now going to bring us to 5. Lost my back loop there for a minute. There we go. Now you can see that we've got a curve that's happening because of putting all the increases on one side. Chain 1 and turn. This time we're just going to work a regular row of single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochet. And now we're going to work a row with an increase on each side to get to 7. So chain 1 and turn, increase, 3 regular single crochet, and increase. And that brings us to 7. Now we can do an edging around the edge of the hat. So I'm going to chain 1 to give a nice corner, and I'm going to work just 6 single crochet across the side here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this is the inside curve of the side, so I've only worked 6. When I work on this side, I'm going to work 8, and that's going to just accentuate that curve to make this curve towards the inside here. So now I'm going to chain 3 to give me a nice point at the top, and I'm going to be attaching a little pom-pom to there later. So chain 3, and now I'm going to work 8 single crochet along this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now when I join, I'm going to change colors to white so I can do the edging. So instead of slip stitching with the red yarn, I'm going to grab my white yarn, and I'm going to finish this slip stitch with the white yarn. And now we have a nice clean color change for the edging. So I'm going to chain 1, and for my edging I'm going to do slip stitch, chain 2 in every stitch across. So slip stitch, chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2, all the way across to make this nice ruffly edging. And then when I get to the last one, I'm not going to do the chain 2, I'm just slip stitching. So there I get that nice ruffly little edge on my hat. Now I can fasten off, but with the white, I'm going to leave enough yarn to sew this edge in, because I'm going to use white to sew along the edge just to accentuate that edging a little bit more. So I'm going to leave, you know, like 3 or 4 times the length there. Probably, what would you say, that's 12, 18 inches, somewhere in that range. Probably more than I need, but I always like to leave more than I need rather than less. Fasten that off, and I can cut this red as well. And you can go ahead and sew in all the ends except for this big long end, because that's the one you're going to use for sewing this on. I've woven in the ends on my hat, and I want to add a little pom-pom. So I've taken a 6 to 8 inch piece of yarn, and I'm just going to lay it between my first 2 fingers here. Okay, now I'm going to take my ball of white yarn, see that yarn is still there, and I'm going to wrap it around these 2 fingers about, oh, I don't know, 20 times or so, just to make a little pom-pom. So just like that. Okay, that's probably enough. And I'm going to cut that. Now this yarn that's between my fingers, I'm going to pull that up just like that. Okay, now it's around my pom-pom, and I can tie a surgeon's knot, which is just like a half knot, but then you do it one more time, just like that. Okay, and pull that nice and tight. And when I'm sure that's really tight, then I can slip this off my fingers and pull that even tighter. Okay, really, really tight. Now I'm going to tie it again. Come around to the other end, tie it again. Okay, now it's really super tight. Then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to sew each of these ends through the center a couple of times, like this, to make sure it's super secure. There's once, twice, 3 times, and then sew this one through. Once, okay, once. Now I'm going to hold off on doing any more with that. I'm just going to trim these off first. Okay, so grab all these little loops and grab the scissors, and we're going to trim the tops of these loops. Now if you buy one of those little felt pom-poms, that's great. The tiny pom-poms, you know, you can just buy one and sew it on. This is if you didn't feel like running to the store. You can make your own. Be careful not to cut this thread that the needle's attached to. I keep moving that out of the way. You can cut this other thread that you already sewed in. Okay, and then just trim this up nice and pretty, and I'm holding it like this with that one thread so that I don't cut that thread. There we go, a tiny furry little pom-pom. Now I'm going to use this thread that's still attached to sew it on to that little loop at the top, and I'm going to sew it back through here, and it's very tight now, so just find a spot to sew it through. Okay, and back down again through that hole, and I'm going to go through the hole from front to back so that it sits nicely on the front. So back down again, sorry, there we go, got it. Nope, not got it. There we go. Back down again and through from front to back so that it sits on the front. Okay, and one more time up through. Now it's secured well to that. It's sitting towards the front. I can trim this off and do any last minute touch-ups on the look of it, and there we go, a scruffy little pom-pom. And that's our hat. I have all my pieces done, the back, the front, the hat. So now it's time to put everything together. So we start with sewing the front and back together. You've got the long thread that's still attached to your front. So go ahead and put that on your needle. And then place the front and back together so that the magnet is sandwiched inside and the ears kind of line up centered with the face, okay? So make sure that, you know, I look at the eyes and it looks like the top tips of the eyes are in line with the ears. So that looks pretty centered to me right there. Now we're gonna just sew around the outside edge, and you can use whatever stitch you like. In this case, I'm gonna use a whip stitch all the way around. So for a whip stitch, I'm always coming in from the front and going to the back, and that way it whips over the edge, and that's why it's called a whip stitch. Now when you get to the ears, you're going to have to be careful. You're going to have to do one stitch on one side of it, like I just did, and then bring it around to the other side or sew it back to the front under the other stitch, however you want to do it, so that you're not getting a yarn going across your ear that way, or twisting it up in there like that. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to do another stitch there and continue around. And you should be able to line it up stitch for stitch. There's 24 on each piece. When your front and back are sewn together, go ahead and weave in the tail on the back. Try to be neat because it's going to show if anybody looks at the back of the magnet. And then let's sew on the hat. So put that extra long tail you have from the hat onto your needle. Make sure you're looking at the right side. This is the right side, this is the wrong side, okay? Put the hat in place, and now when you get to the edge stitches, this edge and this edge, try to fold them over the edge of that seam there and sew from back to front. That's just a little trick to make that edge a little nicer. So from back to front and then back up through here again, and that'll wrap it around the edge slightly so you get more of a seamless look in the front. It looks more like it's wrapped around the head. Now for this one, I want to use a back stitch. So I'm over here. I'm actually going to turn it upside down because that's easier for me. And I want the stitch to be part of the decoration. So I'm going to come forward 2 and then back 1, just like that. And I'm catching the head yarn underneath as I do it. Okay. And that leaves that nice line, and I think I want to come out on this side of that line every time. Okay, forward 2, make sure I'm still lined up so I'm not stretching my hat out too much. Forward 2, back 1. Okay, and I want to be on this side. Forward 2, back 1. Forward 2, back 1, and then when I get to this little edge again, I'm going to wrap it around. So I'm coming around the back here and then through the front like that, and I'm still going to come on this side. Okay, and then I'm going to do one final stitch just to really tack it down back there. From the back to the front. Well, I'll just go to the back right there. I'm coming through the back, and I'm going to try and weave this in inside the head. So I'm weaving on the opposite side of these stitches here so that it's nice and hidden. And there is your elf magnet. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!